My friend's sister uses a poop knife. It was supposed to be a regular Friday night at my buddy Jason's house. You know, the kind of night where you just chill, binge-watch trashy movies, stuff your face with pizza, and avoid thinking about the pointless shit you had to do all week. So, there I was, sprawled out on the couch, remote in hand, ready to zone out for the next few hours. Nothing out of the ordinary, right? Wrong. Jason and I were doing our usual thing, joking around, cracking up over some stupid video, and just generally wasting time like we always did. It was the calm before the storm. The night was as chill as it gets, until the weirdest things started happening. You see, Jason's family is, well, different. I mean, what family isn't, right? But there's a weirdness about them that I could never quite put my finger on. Jason's mom is this quirky lady who loves to decorate with the kind of crap you only see in vintage stores. I'm talking old-school porcelain dolls and those creepy framed needlepoint hangings that look like they're from 1955. And his dad, well, he's one of those silent, garden-loving dudes. Like, he genuinely spends hours talking to his plants. I'm not talking about just watering them, either. He talks to them like they're his kids. Weird, right? And then there's Emily, Jason's sister. Now, Emily's only a few years younger than us, but she's a whole other level of weird. She's quiet, but when she speaks, she has that dry sense of humor that catches you off guard. The kind of humor that makes you think she might have just dropped a bombshell in a casual conversation, and you're only just realizing it. She's always lurking around, doing her own thing, but you could never quite tell if she was just a little off or if she was hiding some deep, twisted secret. Tonight? Yeah, she was about to blow that mystery wide open. We were deep into a movie when I heard the sound coming from the bathroom. It wasn't the usual toilet flush. Hell no. It sounded like the toilet was fighting for its life, gurgling, struggling, and begging for mercy. The kind of noise you make when you're trying to hold it in, but it's already too late. That's when Jason shot me a look. We both knew what that sound meant. Dude, is Emily in the bathroom? I asked, half joking, half concerned. It was the kind of noise that made you think the plumbing was about to explode. Yeah, she's probably in there again, Jason said, not even looking up. She takes forever to do whatever the hell she's doing in there. I couldn't help but laugh. I swear, she spends more time in there than a contractor doing a bathroom remodel. We let it slide, but the noises didn't stop. In fact, it sounded like Emily was really having trouble. Hold up, Jason said, setting down his pizza and standing up. I'm gonna check on this. This is too weird. Now, in hindsight, I probably should have stopped him right there. But hey, we were 22 years old and we hadn't exactly encountered anything like this before. So, like the idiot I am, I followed him down the hall, ready for whatever absurdity was about to unfold. As we walked toward the bathroom, I heard Emily's footsteps in the kitchen, followed by a strange sound that made me pause. It was too weird to ignore. I looked at Jason, and he gave me the "what the hell is going on" look. Is she carrying a knife? Jason muttered under his breath. And sure enough, when we rounded the corner into the kitchen, there she was. Emily. Walking around, casually holding a pocket knife in her hand. I couldn't have been more confused if she'd walked in wearing a cape. Yo, Jason called out, what the hell do you need a knife for? She didn't even look at us, just kept walking. The toilet won't flush, she said, as though it was the most normal thing in the world. Jason and I just froze. We exchanged a glance, trying to piece together what was happening. Wait, I said, trying to wrap my head around it. You're going in there with a knife? What, are you going to carve the turd up like a Thanksgiving turkey? She didn't miss a beat. Pretty much. Jason and I were both speechless. I had a million questions running through my head, none of which made sense. Why was she holding a knife? Why was this normal for her? And why in the hell did she think cutting a turd was the best solution to this? Emily didn't answer. She just turned around and walked toward the bathroom with the knife in hand, as if she was going to stab whatever monster was blocking the toilet. Wait, you can't be serious, Jason whispered to me, still in disbelief. Dude, why does she need a knife for this? I'm going to follow her, I said, now utterly curious. This can't be real. This is like some weird family ritual, and I have to see it for myself. And that's when we both followed her down the hall, still not quite understanding the absolute absurdity of what was about to go down. Jason and I stood frozen at the end of the hallway, watching Emily walk casually into the bathroom with a pocket knife in hand, as if it was just another typical Tuesday. I don't know why I thought this would be a normal situation, but at that moment, my brain couldn't quite process what was going down. I had no idea whether I should be worried or just give in and laugh at the absolute absurdity of it all. Dude, we can't just let this happen. We need to figure out what the hell's going on, Jason whispered, looking at me like I was the voice of reason. Honestly, I wasn't sure I was ready for this level of family dysfunction, but hey, this was Jason's family. I didn't have a choice. Before I could even respond, we heard the unmistakable sound of the bathroom door slamming shut, followed by the sound of heavy breathing, like Emily was in there trying to wrestle the toilet into submission. The gurgling sounds intensified. "Oh, this is not gonna end well," I muttered. But we both stood there for a moment, waiting for the storm to hit. And then it did. Jason's dad, Mr. Miller, appeared out of nowhere, as if summoned by the sound of a household disaster. His face was contorted with the kind of horror you expect to see when you walk in on something you really weren't prepared for. "What the hell is going on in here?" he yelled, the panic clear in his voice. "Who's responsible for this, turd?" Jason and I looked at each other, trying not to laugh. But at the same time, we were both kind of terrified. What the hell was going on in that bathroom? The door to the bathroom opened, and there stood Emily, nonchalantly holding the knife like she was preparing for some kind of high-stakes surgery. "Emily, what the hell is that?" Mr. Miller pointed to the knife in her hand, his voice rising with confusion. "Why do you have a pocket knife? Why are you holding that like it's a damn weapon?" "Oh, it's fine," Emily replied, completely calm, as if this was an everyday situation. "I'm just cutting it." I stared at her. "Cutting what? What the hell are you talking about?" "Cutting the turd," she said with the kind of casual indifference you'd expect from a surgeon about to make a routine incision. At this point, my brain was struggling to compute. What? How? This couldn't be happening. Was she really using a pocket knife to cut a turd? Who does that? Mr. Miller's face had turned beet red. "Cutting, what? Are you out of your mind? You can't cut a turd." Emily simply nodded. "Yeah, it won't flush unless I do." She turned back to the bathroom like nothing unusual was happening, as if everyone in the room wasn't just standing there completely horrified. "Wait, Jason finally said, his voice cracking from laughter and disbelief. "Emily, seriously, how long have you been doing this?" And that's when Emily casually dropped the bombshell. "For about 6 years now," she said, her eyes not even meeting anyone's. She was just so calm about this. "Since I started, like, you know, having bigger ones." The room went silent. 6 years? 6 years of using a poop knife? What kind of family had I walked into? Jason's dad looked like he was about to combust. "Are you telling me," he started, his voice shaking, "that you've been using a knife to cut your period turds for 6 years?" He looked at Emily, his jaw dropping in sheer disbelief. Jason and I couldn't hold it in any longer. We both burst out laughing, clutching our stomachs as we tried to stifle the sound. But it didn't help. We were both dying. "What kind of family are you?" I asked between fits of laughter. What the hell is happening here? But the absurdity didn't end there. Oh no. This was just the start. Emily shrugged, looking at me and Jason like we were overreacting. "I mean, it's just easier this way," she said, almost sounding bored with the whole ordeal. "Otherwise, it gets stuck, and then, it's just a disaster." That was it. That was the moment that confirmed this was not a prank. Not a joke. This was a real thing happening in real time. Jason and I were now full-on laughing, but it was the kind of laugh that came from sheer panic and disbelief. We couldn't look at Emily the same way again. Mr. Miller was visibly sweating now. "What the hell do you mean easier?" he asked, his voice rising with each word. "You can't just go around cutting turds. This isn't normal." Meanwhile, Mrs. Miller had entered the scene, probably drawn in by the chaos in the hallway. She took one look at the scene and froze. Then, she blinked, and blinked again, as though she couldn't process what was going on. "Emily, what is this?" Mrs. Miller asked, her voice tight with concern, as if she thought she had missed something important in her parenting handbook. Emily was already walking back toward the bathroom, not even acknowledging her mom's question. "I'll be fine," she said, almost dismissively. "I'll cut it, flush it, and everything will be good." But Mrs. Miller wasn't letting it slide. "Emily, how long have you been doing this?" "I told you, Mom," Emily said, her voice now full of irritation, 6 years. "It's just easier." I looked at Jason, and he was losing it, laughing uncontrollably. I couldn't keep it together either. We were both doubled over, trying to gasp for air. How was this happening? This had to be the most bizarre thing I had ever witnessed in my entire life. Emily's mom turned back to her husband. "So, you've known about this?" she asked, clearly shocked. Mr. Miller, still in disbelief, just stood there with his hands on his hips, trying to process it all. "I had no idea," he said quietly. "I thought it was a phase." After the knife incident, it was hard to tell what was more unsettling, the fact that Emily had been cutting her turds with a pocket knife for 6 years, or the fact that nobody in the family seemed to bat an eye anymore. Jason and I were still struggling to stop laughing, but even we knew this situation was somehow getting worse. Jason's dad, Mr. Miller, was standing in the middle of the hallway, completely stunned. I could see the gears in his head turning, processing this new revelation. There was a long pause as he took in Emily's casual response, trying to wrap his mind around how he'd managed to miss this bizarre family ritual for so long. "I can't believe this," Mr. Miller finally muttered under his breath, looking like he was seconds away from either passing out or running to the nearest therapist. "How the hell did I not know about this?" Jason's mom, Mrs. Miller, stood next to him, trying to process the absurdity of the situation. She glanced at her daughter, then back at the rest of us, as if this were all happening in slow motion. It was like someone had dropped a bomb in the middle of their living room, and none of them could figure out how to react. "You know what?" Mrs. Miller said, her voice soft but tinged with exasperation. "If this is really a thing for you, Emily, then we need to talk about this. I mean, what am I, doing as parents that you feel like you have to do this?" Emily looked bored at this point. "It's not a big deal, Mom. I've been doing this forever. If I don't, it'll just get stuck and the toilet overflows." She sounded like she was explaining how to make a sandwich or something equally mundane. It was clear that she had no understanding of how completely insane this whole situation was. Jason and I were still in tears from laughing, but the absurdity of the moment wasn't lost on me. The whole family was now standing around, processing this moment, but it felt like everyone was either too embarrassed or too mentally exhausted to do anything about it. That's when Mr. Miller made his move. I don't know if it was the stress of everything or if he was just trying to make this weirdness into some sort of family bonding moment, but he turned to us, his face red with embarrassment and determination. "You too," Mr. Miller said, pointing at me and Jason. "I swear to God if a word of this ever leaves this house, I'll kick the shit out of you." Jason and I just stared at him, trying to suppress the laughs that were bubbling up again. I mean, seriously? The man had just been forced to confront his daughter's poop knife secret, and now he was giving us a threat that felt more like a joke than anything else. But honestly, this family had officially crossed the line into the most ridiculous territory possible. "Dude," I said between fits of laughter, "do you think we're going to go around telling people about this? You can't make this up." Jason, finally catching his breath, nodded. "Honestly, this story stays here. This kind of chaos stays locked in this house. You're lucky I'm not broadcasting it." Mr. Miller's face softened, and for a second, I thought we were all about to have a heart-to-heart. Then he did the unthinkable. "You're not getting out of this without a little punishment," he said with a grin. "Come here, you little turd." And that's when it hit me. Jason's dad was trying to act like this was some kind of bonding experience. The same man who was so horrified minutes ago was now making awkward jokes about how family meant supporting each other through everything. But let's be honest, no amount of dad jokes could salvage the situation. Jason and I tried to act serious for a moment, but the absurdity of it all hit us at once. We couldn't hold it in. We were back to uncontrollable laughter. Jason gasped, "I can't." "I know," I shouted, clutching my stomach. "This is a goddamn sitcom. Emily's the star of her own show." Jason's dad stepped closer, looked at us with a stern face, then cracked a smile. "Don't say a word to anyone about Sir Turdley of Bummertown. And that's your warning. This family is tight-lipped." But before we could even respond, Mr. Miller's entire demeanor shifted again, as if he had just switched to dad mode. He looked at Emily, smiled, and patted her on the back. "Well, sweet pea," he said in a completely deadpan tone, "that's your knife now. You keep it. It's your responsibility." The entire room froze. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. He was handing her the knife, like some twisted version of a passing of the torch ceremony. Emily nodded like this was just business as usual. She tucked the knife into her pocket, still totally unfazed by the whole ordeal. And then, just as quickly as it all started, it was over. The awkwardness hung in the air like an elephant in the room. Jason and I were still in shock, trying to recover from the chaotic whirlwind of what had just unfolded in front of us. And as much as I was dying to scream about the insanity of it all, I knew better. Jason's dad wasn't kidding when he threatened to kick the shit out of us if anyone found out. This was a family secret that would stay locked in this house forever. But of course, there was one last moment of comedy to cap it all off. As I walked toward the door to leave, trying to keep myself together, I overheard Mr. Miller mutter to his wife, "You know, I never thought I'd have to explain this to the neighbors." The entire room burst out laughing again, and it was official, this night had just reached its peak of ridiculousness. And no matter how awkward or insane it had been, I knew one thing for sure, I'd never look at a toilet the same way again.